Most people live as if their thoughts were just passing clouds in the sky of consciousness. They think, they wish, they imagine, and then they wonder why life remains unchanged. There's a hidden truth that few discover in a lifetime. Thought charged with certainty is not just a mental activity. It is a creative force that literally transmutes desires into physical matter. Wallace D. Wattles, the master of creative thinking, revealed that there is a thinking substance of which all things are made. This substance responds to human thought, but not just any thought, only one imbued with the vibrational energy of absolute certainty. You may be wondering, but I've wanted so many things so hard. Why haven't they manifested? The answer is simple and at the same time revolutionary. You are wishing, not knowing. There is an abyss between these two states that few can cross. Imagine two people, both visualize a new house. The first spends years wishing, hoping, yearning, creating elaborate vision boards and repeating affirmations. The second simply knows, with unshakable certainty, that the house is already hers on the invisible plane, and that its physical manifestation is just a matter of time. Who do you think will get the keys first? Certainty is not a feeling. It is a creative force that shapes reality. When you look at the true masters of manifestation, those who seem to attract success, abundance, and fulfillment with apparent ease, you will see that they are not asking the universe. They are declaring to the universe. They are not waiting for external signs to believe. Your internal belief is the signal that precedes any physical evidence. You are probably trading in the reverse pattern right now. Wait to see and then believe. Wish instead of knowing. Ask instead of declare. And that's why your desires remain like balloons in the air, visible, but intangible. The transmutation of thought into matter begins when you abandon this limiting pattern. When you understand that your mind is not just a passive observer of reality, but an active force that participates in its constant creation. What do you think would happen if, for a single day, you completely let go of doubt? If every thought were imbued not with hope, but with absolute certainty? If you knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that the invisible is already becoming visible through the power of your thought? This is the first great truth that needs to be assimilated. Certainty is not the result of manifestation. It is its primordial cause. It's not what comes after. It's what comes before. It is not the reward for faith. It is the very substance of true faith. When Wallace D. Wattles declared that thought is the only force that can produce tangible wealth from formless substance, he was revealing a secret that ancient alchemists guarded with their lives. The true philosopher's stone has never been an external object. It has always been the human mind charged with the transformative power of absolute certainty. Masters of all spiritual traditions have understood this truth, although they have expressed it in different languages. In the East, they talked about the creative power of the concentrated mind. In the West, they taught that faith can move mountains. Both traditions pointed to the same fundamental reality. Certainty transforms the invisible into the visible. This is why so many people remain trapped in limited circumstances despite their best efforts. They are operating on the mental equivalent of a weak, static-filled radio signal. The transmission exists, but it is too weak to completely imprint itself on the universal substance. It is only when the signal is clear, powerful, and constant, that is, permeated with absolute certainty, that complete transmutation can occur. There is an exact science behind the transmutation of thoughts into material reality. It is not vague mysticism or spiritual fantasy. It's a process as precise as mathematics, as reliable as gravity. When you think with certainty, you are not simply generating an idea. You are emitting a specific vibrational frequency. This frequency interacts directly with the thinking substance that permeates the entire universe. You literally program this substance to take the form of your dominant thought. Wallace D. Wattles describes this process as a precise sequence, clear, defined thought, imbued with unwavering purpose, transmitted through unwavering faith, imprinted on formless substance, which then begins to organize itself into corresponding physical patterns. It's like a perfectly tuned transmitter and receiver. Your thought is the transmitter, reality is the receiver. But only thoughts charged with the energy of certainty have enough power to make the transmission complete. When was the last time you knew, with absolute certainty that something was going to happen, and then it happened exactly as you knew it would. Examine this moment. What was different about the quality of this specific thought compared to the thousands of desires that remain unmanifested? The answer lies in vibrational quality. There are 3 levels of certainty you need to understand: intellectual certainty, emotional certainty, and cellular certainty. The first inhabits your mind, the second your heart, the third every cell of your body. True transmutation only occurs when the 3 levels are perfectly aligned. Your thoughts are not just reflections of reality. They are seeds of worlds not yet born. Modern physics confirms what the ancient masters always knew. At the quantum level, matter is not solid. It is energy vibrating in specific patterns. And what determines these patterns? Conscious observation. Your thinking literally reorganizes the quantum field of possibilities into probabilities, and then into concrete reality. Think of this transmutation as a radio station that needs to be perfectly tuned. If there is static, doubt, fear, disbelief, the transmission will stop. The manifestation will be partially or completely blocked. Only the pure sign of absolute certainty completely pierces the veil between the invisible and visible worlds. This is the reason why so many people fail in their attempts at conscious manifestation. They don't understand the science behind the process. They treat it as a mystical wish system rather than a precise mental technology. Wallace D. Wattles knew this science was exact. There's a way of thinking the truth that will bring wealth to you, and if you get that way, it will bring wealth to you irrevocably, according to the laws, just as the law of gravitation brings the apple to the ground. Mind transmutation is not a vague concept. It is a practical technology. When you enter the mental state of absolute certainty, you activate a universal mechanism that begins to reorganize matter in accordance with your dominant thought. This is not a metaphor. It is a literal description of the process by which your thoughts become things. And it doesn't take a Herculean effort. Transmutation occurs not through the force of will, but through the purity of certainty. The freer of doubts, the greater the transformative power of thought. Think of the great inventors and visionaries in history. Thomas Edison didn't just hope to create the light bulb. He knew, with unshakable certainty, that the solution existed and that he would find it. This certainty fueled more than 10,000 experiments until full physical manifestation. The Wright brothers didn't merely want to fly. They knew that human flight was possible and inevitable. This certainty was transmuted into the first successful aircraft. The difference between an ordinary dreamer and an extraordinary creator is not talent or luck. It is the degree of certainty that each is capable of generating and maintaining. The first waits and desires. The second knows and declares. There's a mental trap that keeps almost all of humanity trapped in a perpetual cycle of limited manifestation. This trap is so subtle, so culturally accepted, that we rarely question it. It is the belief that we need to see external evidence before we can cultivate internal certainty. I'll see it to believe it, says the skeptic. And so, without realizing it, he completely reverses the natural order of creation. It's like trying to reap before planting, a physical and metaphysical impossibility. Wallace D. Wattles was categorical. Do not try to project your faith on new things before you have faith in things unseen. It is only faith in that which is unseen that causes the unseen to come into view. This is perhaps the deepest and least understood principle of mental transmutation. Evidence does not precede certainty. Certainty precedes evidence. Consider for a moment the story of a woman who perpetually lived in the illusion of evidence. She wanted a new job, but said, "I'll believe it's possible when I get an offer." He wanted perfect health, but he said, "I will believe in a cure when the tests prove it." He wanted a loving relationship, but he insisted, "I will believe in love when I find the right person." Years passed, and nothing fully manifested itself in his life. Why? Because she had imprisoned her creative power in a logical cage. I was waiting for the effect to produce the cause, a complete reversal of natural law. Your brain, like all of us, works like a sophisticated reality filter. It literally filters information based on your prior beliefs. If you believe something is impossible, your brain will filter out all evidence that suggests possibility. If you are sure that something is inevitable, Your brain will immediately begin to gather all the evidence that confirms this certainty. This is why do people can look at the same situation and see completely different realities. It's not that one is right and the other is wrong. It's that both are seeing confirmation of their internal certainties, projected onto the screen of reality. To break this cycle, you need to take what I call the certainty leap, the courageous act of cultivating absolute conviction before any external evidence. It's like jumping off a cliff knowing that your wings will emerge as you fall. Many shy away from this leap for fear of ridicule. What if I believe and nothing happens? This is the voice of ego, not wisdom. The ego fears appearing foolish more than it desires full manifestation, prefers safe mediocrity to risky greatness. Wallace D. Wattles would say, don't ask God to prove to you that he will answer you by answering you first. That would be putting the cart before the horse. The same guidance applies to your relationship with the thinking substance that permeates the universe. Don't demand proof before you have faith, offer faith, and the proof will come as a natural consequence. When you free your mind from the illusion of external evidence, the power of transmutation flows unobstructed. Your thoughts, charged with the energy of absolute certainty, immediately begin to reorganize matter in accordance with your inner vision. Notice how young children do not suffer from this illusion. They have no difficulty believing in the invisible before seeing proof. This is why your imagination is so vivid and powerful. Conventional education gradually replaces this natural ability with the need for empirical proof before belief. In essence, we are trained to deactivate our natural power of transmutation. The mental state of absolute certainty has a unique energetic signature. It is not a superficial intellectual conviction. It is a deep knowledge that permeates every cell of your being. When you reach this state, there is an unshakable calm at the core of your being. There is no anxiety or doubt. There is only a silent knowing, as natural as your own breathing. In this state, you do not try to convince yourself or others. There is no need to debate or defend. True certainty is silent, powerful, and completely relaxed. Think about how you feel about the sun rising tomorrow. There is no tension in that certainty, just a calm knowing. The universe does not respond to your desires. Respond to your certainty. There are 5 pillars that support the state of absolute certainty. The first is clarity. You must know exactly what you are creating, without ambiguities or vague generalities. The second is consistency. Your dominant thought must remain stable, without oscillations between faith and doubt. The third is calm, an inner tranquility that signals complete confidence. The fourth is anticipatory gratitude, feeling the gratitude now that you would feel after the manifestation. The fifth is detachment, the release of any desperate need for the outcome. Wallace D. Wattles explained that in thinking, the mind is taken away from the substance and an image or form is projected onto it. This impression causes the substance to move to assume the form of which you are thinking. There's a crucial difference between anxious expectation and calm expectation. The first contains an element of doubt. You want to believe, but internally you fear failure. The second is pure certainty. You are already at peace with the outcome because you know it is inevitable. Only calm expectation activates the power of transmutation. To access this state of mind, start with your breathing. Inhale deeply, allowing your body to completely relax. Adjust your posture to a position of natural dignity. Now, clearly visualize what you want to manifest, not as a distant possibility, but as a reality already existing on the invisible plane, just waiting for the perfect moment to materialize. Imagine your body as a garden where you plant seeds of thought. Each seed contains the full potential of the final manifestation. Just as a gardener would not constantly dig up the seed to check its growth, you should not repeatedly question the certainty you have planted. Shower it with positive attention, protect it from winds of doubt, and allow it to grow at its own perfect pace. The original substance moves according to its thoughts, wrote Wallace D. Wattles. Every form and process you see in nature is the visible expression of a thought in the original substance. When you fully understand this truth, you realize that your creative power is not metaphorical, it is literal. Your thoughts are literally molding the universal substance into forms that correspond to your inner certainties. The state of absolute certainty is not something you do, it is something you are. It is a vibrational frequency that you naturally emit when you remove all the layers of doubt, fear, and limitation that have been imprinted on your consciousness throughout your life. Ultimately, certainty is your natural state. Doubt is learned. Full confidence in the creative power of the mind is your birth inheritance. You're just remembering what you always knew but temporarily forgot. Notice how great leaders and visionaries naturally emanate this state of certainty. It's not a technique they learn, it's a state of being they cultivated. Your presence alone inspires confidence in others because certainty is contagious. When you meet someone in a state of absolute certainty, you feel it instinctively. It is a palpable energy that conveys natural authority without the need for verbal affirmation. Cultivating this state is no different than cultivating a physical muscle. It requires consistent practice, focused attention, and a willingness to push the boundaries of your comfort zone. At first, you can only sustain this state for brief moments. With dedicated practice, this ability expands until the state of certainty becomes your default vibrational frequency. Theoretical understanding of the power of certainty is just the beginning. To effectively transmutate your desires into physical matter, you need a conscious daily practice that systematically reprograms your mental patterns. What I call the transmutation ritual is a 7-step protocol designed to cultivate and maintain the state of absolute certainty. The first step is silence. Start each day with a period of complete stillness. Before the worries of the world invade your consciousness, create a space of pure receptivity. In this silence, your mind becomes like a crystal clear lake, perfectly receptive to the impressions of certainty. The second step is mental purification. Consciously free yourself from all thoughts of doubt, fear, and limitation. Visualize them as clouds dissolving at sunrise. This daily cleaning is essential because certainty cannot coexist with doubt, just as light cannot coexist with darkness in the same space. The third step is vivid visualization. See in full sensory detail what you want to manifest, not as something distant in the future, but as a present reality. See the colors, hear the sounds, feel the textures, experience the emotions. The more real your visualization, the more powerful the impression on the universal substance will be. The fourth step is the declaration, articulating clear and powerful words the truth of what you know is already yours. Do not use future language "I will have," "I will be able to," but rather present language "I have," "I am." As Wallace D. Wattles taught, never speak of yourself, your affairs, or anything else in a way that is not as you want it to be. The fifth step is gratitude in advance. Feel now the deep gratitude you would experience after receiving your manifestation. This gratitude is not a technique. It is the sincere recognition that, on the invisible plane, you have already received. It is the emotional frequency that completes the circuit of manifestation. The sixth step is liberation. Completely let go of any attachment to the outcome or the how. Hand the process over to infinite intelligence that knows exactly how to orchestrate every detail of the physical manifestation. This detachment is not indifference, it is supreme trust. The seventh and final step is inspired action. Be aware of the intuitive impulses that arise naturally throughout the day. These are not forced efforts, but graceful movements that arise from your inner alignment when you act from certainty. Each step is powerful, precise, and effective. Daily practice does not create the miracle. She reveals the miracle that has always been within her reach. The morning alpha period, those precious moments between sleep and full wakefulness, is the ideal time for this ritual. Your subconscious mind is particularly receptive during this time. Create a dedicated physical space for this practice, a mental altar where you cultivate the garden of certainty daily. There are 3 enemies that will try to sabotage your practice: inconsistency, haste, and doubt. Inconsistency dilutes the cumulative power of ritual. Haste compromises the depth of the impression. Doubt neutralizes the power of certainty. Be vigilant against these internal saboteurs. Consider the story of a man who practiced this ritual for 90 consecutive days without missing a single day. For the first 30 days, nothing seemed to change externally. Over the next 30 days, small synchronicities began to appear: accidental encounters, unexpected opportunities, sudden insights. Over the past 30 days, The full physical manifestation of your desire has materialized with surprising naturalness, as if it had always been inevitable. What many don't understand is that this consistent practice literally rewires your brain's neural circuits. New synaptic connections are formed. Old patterns of doubt atrophy. You are physically recreating your brain to be a more powerful transmitter of the frequency of certainty. Wallace D. Waddell stated, "Constant thought and purpose form the power that attracts wealth." The key word here is constant. Your daily practice is what keeps your thought and purpose unshakable, protecting you from external influences that would try to divert your certainty. In reality, you already practice transmutation every day, but unconsciously, creating by default rather than by design. Conscious practice simply directs this power that is already active, focusing it on your highest desires rather than your subconscious fears. A crucial aspect of daily practice is absolute honesty with yourself. Notice what thoughts habitually occupy your mind when you are not consciously directing your attention. These automatic thoughts reveal your current certainties, those that are actively shaping your present reality. Conscious transmutation begins with recognizing these limiting certainties, and then systematically replacing them with higher standards. The power of certainty thinking is not limited to a single sphere of existence. It is a universal force that operates in every aspect of your life. Yet each sphere has its own unique language and patterns of manifestation. Let's examine how transmutation expresses itself in the four main spheres: health, relationships, prosperity, and purpose. In the health sphere, transmutation begins with absolute certainty in your body's innate intelligence. Each of your trillions of cells responds directly to the quality of your dominant thought. When you maintain the mental state of perfect health, not as a desired future condition, but as a present truth, thinking substance immediately begins to reorganize the physical cells to align with this inner truth. A powerful example is that of a woman diagnosed with an incurable condition. Instead of accepting the external verdict, she cultivated unshakable certainty in the perfection of her body. He dedicated himself to the transmutation ritual 3 times a day, visualizing each cell vibrating with perfect health. Within 6 months, to the amazement of his doctors, his body had completely regenerated. His scan showed no sign of the previous condition. In the sphere of relationships, transmutation operates through your primordial relationship, the one you have with yourself. When you cultivate the certainty that you are complete, worthy, and deeply loving exactly as you are, universal substance responds by bringing you people who reflect this inner truth. A man had spent years looking for the perfect partner, always finding relationships that ended in disappointment. When he finally understood the principle of transmutation, he stopped searching externally and began to cultivate the certainty that perfect love already existed in his life. Within 2 months, he found his soul partner not through anxious searching, but through a synchronistic encounter that seemed perfectly orchestrated by the universe. Each sphere of life responds to the same law, but with its own unique language. In the sphere of prosperity, transmutation requires the certainty that abundance is your natural state of being. Wallace D. Waddell was categorical. The desire for wealth is simply the capacity for life, seeking fuller expression. When you maintain the certainty of abundant financial flow, visualizing not just numbers in an account, but the feeling of freedom and expansion that prosperity brings, thinking substance begins to manifest opportunities, ideas, and resources that match this internal frequency. An entrepreneur who was struggling financially began practicing the transmutation ritual daily, focused on prosperity. Instead of obsessively checking her nearly empty bank account, she cultivated the certainty of unlimited abundance. Gradually, business insights began to emerge in his mind. Unexpected connections were formed. One morning, she woke up with a complete idea for a new venture that, within a year, multiplied her income tenfold. In the sphere of purpose, transmutation operates by revealing your unique path of expression in the world. Many seek their purpose as if it were something external to be found. The truth is that your purpose already exists within you, waiting to be released through certainty. An artist who had abandoned his creativity for a safe job began to feel a deep existential void. When he discovered the power of transmutation, He dedicated himself to the ritual daily, cultivating the certainty that his creative purpose was already being fully expressed. Within weeks, opportunities to share her art began to coincidentally appear. Within a year, he had left his day job and was living completely off his authentic artistic expression. Which of these spheres is asking for more attention in your life right now? Where do you notice the biggest discrepancy between your current state and your full potential? This is precisely the point where you must apply the power of transmutation with more dedication. A fascinating aspect of this process is that, although each sphere responds to the same fundamental law, each requires a slightly different pattern of thinking. In healthcare, visualization must be sensorial and cellular. In relationships, it must be emotional and connective. In prosperity, it must be expansive and fluid. In purpose, it must be essential and expressive. However, in all spheres, certainty remains the fundamental catalyst of transmutation. It's not what you want that manifests, it's what you know, with absolute conviction. That is already yours by natural right. Wallace D. Wattles summed up this truth when he wrote, "Man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought on formless substance, he can cause the thing he thinks to be created." An important note, transmutation does not operate in a vacuum. It responds to your deepest value system, not just your superficial desires. If you seek to manifest material wealth while internally believing that money is the root of all evil, this internal contradiction will prevent complete transmutation. Certainty must be aligned with your core values for the power of transmutation to flow unobstructed. Many people experience partial or temporary manifestations because they have not completely aligned their conscious desires with their subconscious beliefs. Full transmutation requires internal integrity, a complete alignment between what you consciously desire and what you believe to be possible, and appropriate at the deepest level of your being. What you have learned so far is not just a philosophical concept or an esoteric theory. It's a practical mental technology that has the power to completely transform your reality. The central truth that runs through everything we share is this: certainty is a creative force that literally transmutes desires into physical matter. You understood that your thoughts, when charged with the energy of absolute certainty, imprint patterns on the universal substance that inevitably manifests in the physical world. You have learned that the natural order of creation is always from the inside out. First internal certainty, then external evidence. The thought of certainty is not a concept to be understood. It is a power to be lived. What will you choose to do with this knowledge? Will you continue in the old pattern of waiting and seeing and then believing? Or will you take the courageous leap into true creative certainty, knowing first, seeing later? Imagine your life a year from now, consistently living in the frequency of absolute certainty. Visualize every sphere of your existence: health, relationships, prosperity, purpose, vibrating in perfect harmony with your highest thoughts. This is not an impossible fantasy, it is your natural birthright. The time to start is right now, not tomorrow, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you have more knowledge. The power of transmutation is available right now. Thinking substance is always present, always responsive, always ready to take the form of your dominant thoughts. Start today with the transmutation ritual. Dedicate yourself to it with unwavering constancy for at least 90 days. Observe with neutral curiosity, not anxious expectation, how your external reality gradually aligns with your internal certainty. And as you begin to witness the power of transmutation in your own life, share this truth with others, not through forced persuasion, but through living example. Let your own transformation be the most eloquent testimony to this universal power. Always remember the words of Wallace D. Wattles: there is no limit to what thinking substance can do for you if you trust it and do its work. The only real limitation is the degree of certainty you can cultivate and maintain. The choice is now yours. The power has always been in your hands, or more precisely, in your mind. Use it consciously. Use it consistently. Use it with the absolute certainty that your thoughts are, at this very moment, transmuting your highest desires into tangible physical reality. You are a being of unlimited power. The only barrier between you and your highest dreams is the quality of your certainty. Remove the Veil of doubt, and you will discover that you have always been able to create miracles.